Hi everyone and welcome back again to my channel. Today we're gonna look at part 2 of the video series on karaoke design. We started the first part today, the second part today, but we have to redo the video because of audio issues, so please bear with us. Alright, so let's go right into it. Last week we looked at the A block, the tone circuit. So today we're going to look at the B block, which is the mixer or preamplifier circuit. Again, this video, as I said last week, is going to be a very long video. So we're breaking them into different parts. So today, let's see if we can keep this to around 10 minutes. All right, so let's go right into it. Please share this link, invite your friends, and if you're new to my channel, thank you and welcome. And please remember to subscribe. If you have already subscribed, thank you, and let's go into it. All right. So part B of this series, like we said, or part 2, let's call it part 2, is the mixer or preamp circuit. Okay, so we're going to use different components that we're familiar with. So we can use transistors or we can use ICs, transistors or integrated circuit, integrated circuits, also known as ICs, right? So let's look at the transistor. We've drawn this in the first part, so we're just gonna look at it. So if you want to use a transistor as a building block for your um, tone circuit, so you can use the 2N22 as a building block, sorry, for your preamplifier or your mixer. Um, we can use the 2N222. We're very familiar with that. So we're just going to redraw it. If you're new to my channel, please watch the other videos, the previous videos on transistor amplifiers. The rest of you guys are very familiar with this. So we start with the transistor. If you watch the videos, they will tell you why we choose the values we're going to be putting down here. Alright, so we're going to just use a simple transistor amplifier. And remember where we put the bubbles shows connection. If we just cross the wires, they are not connected, right? So plus VE is your positive, and then this is ground. Don't use just plus sign, don't use just plus, no, plus VE. All right, positive. And this one will be output, and that is your input. So you're going to put a capacitor here. Remember we said the capacitor are AC short and DC open. So they short circuit the system between two systems. If it's an AC signal going through, they allow, not short circuit, but they allow the signals to go through. For DC, DC will be blocked. So if this is DC, it will be blocked. If this is AC, it will be allowed to go through. That's why we say it is an AC short and the DC open. All right. So here we have 100 kilo ohms. Here we have 10. And then here we also have 10 microfarads, the unit of the capacitors, both of them 10 microfarads. This transistor 2N2222. So we're just gonna put this in as a block. Just see this as a block. So in the future you could use an IC for this. Could be an IC, could be hybrid, a combination of IC in transistors to make your preamplifier. You can use anything you want, but most importantly, for your power amplifier, you can also use both. You can also use either transistors, ICs, or hybrid. So this is our box. This is our preamp block. I love using block diagrams a lot because then you can use your own circuits to replace this. You don't have to use exactly my circuit. You can use whatever you have for this block. Identify the block in your design, your system design, and just replace that. Right. So let's look at the mixer itself. So this is the preamp. How about the mixer? Now the signal is gonna go into, of course, go through and connect here. So the mixer here, we're gonna use transistor resistor. Sorry, capacitor resistor, not transistor, capacitor resistor. Right here we have resistors, and this preamp will be adding them up as a summing circuit. So this circuit will be acting as our summing circuit. Now, okay, we need to change something here. Now this signal that go into our preamplifier, we have to connect a volume control. Remember in the previous videos we talked about volume controls, and would say this is a variable resistor. You can use variable resistors as volume controls, right? So this way. This looks just ugly. Let's make it a little bit beautiful. That's better. All right. So for our volume control for this series, we always use 50 kilo ohms. All right. So for these transistors here, then we're gonna have, yeah, an electrolytic capacitor connected across each. I'm gonna draw them differently. No, this one should be. All right. So these are all symbols of electrolytic capacitor. So some of them you're gonna have two rectangles. One is shaded properly. Let's see. All right. One is shaded, one is not. One is like just a one, and then a rectangle, and then this one is like a C, and then a straight line. So you can find these symbols. I'm just using these on purpose, so when you see them, you don't get thrown off. All right, they are one and the same, just different symbols. All right. Okay. Anyways, so for the purpose of this circuit, let me just make them uniform. I don't want to confuse anyone. Let's just make them look the same. But if you see this in the future, just know they are one and the same, right? Okay, so one is gonna be for our mic one, then mic two, and then this is gonna be for our auxiliary. For mic one and two, we wanna go straight into the microphone circuit, but then we need to have another volume control for different levels of setting for each of the input channels. For our auxiliary, we're gonna do an attenuation, right? So let's see if we can get into that quickly. So for mic one, you're gonna have your mic. Let's use a mic symbol here. Let's just say mic. It's gonna look like condenser microphone, or you can, but let's just say that is our mic. And one signal, one of the connectors goes to ground. This one here, we go into a volume control. So we have a variable resistor, and this goes to ground, and then the signal goes this way. You're gonna have these two for microphones, all right? So I'm gonna use a different symbol for this. Okay, let's use the same. Why not? Let's use the same for microphones and use a different one for the auxiliary. I think that's better. Okay, my resistors are not great today. They're looking so ugly. All right. Now these individual volume controls or variable resistors are used to set the volume of each channel. So if you're singing with multiple people, you can actually adjust the individual volume of the microphones that you guys are using to sing. Right. So now the last one is gonna be our auxiliary. So that's this one we're gonna use a um different symbol for it. So for the auxiliary, we're gonna do let's say let's do this for the auxiliary. All right. And here we're going to do some attenuation. We want to reduce the signal coming from the auxiliary because this is coming from your TV or other radio audio sources that probably have very high volume compared to your microphone signal. So you want to amplify your microphone signal more than the signal coming from this auxiliary input. So what you're going to do is, you remember our discussions on resistors as voltage dividers. So you're going to build a voltage divider around here, and this is going to be an attenuator, not an RF signal attenuator, but an audio signal attenuator. So what it does is, as you know, these two resistors are in series. Okay, if you have nothing connected in parallel here at this point, these two are in series, so the same current will flow through them. So voltage dropped here and voltage dropped here will be proportionate to the size of the value of the resistance, right? So what we want to do is to divide the signal coming in by a factor of 10. So it's going to be 10 is to 1, or if you're going the other way around, it's going to be 1 is to 10. So what we want to do is want this resistor to develop some voltage, about 90% of the signals to be dropped across this. So let's call this R1 and this R2. We want more of the signals to be dropped on over R1 versus R2. So then the volume control will be connected here. Before this, we're going to use a capacitor. Sorry, let's put a capacitor here, and then because we really want to isolate, want to isolate the DC conditions of, yeah, this is what we want to do. So this volume control will still be 50 kilo ohms. Then here we're gonna have use 10 microfarad or so. And then for this, we're gonna use 100k versus 10k, right? So to get the ratio that we want, we're gonna have 100k here and 10k over there. You can use 10k to 100 ohms. That will almost shut, if you use 100 ohms here, it will almost shut all the signals to the ground. So I'll advocate using 100k versus 10k or 100k to 1k or 10k to 1k. Now you can also make this a trimmer. Make this a trimmer so you can play around with the value that works here, right? What you want to achieve is that the signal coming from your auxiliary. So let's go back here. Say this is mic 1 and mic 2. This is aux from TV or any other source, right? Any other audio source. So it could be example TV, you know. So the signal is already high, so you want to attenuate it. In other words, lower. Let's say you want to lower the signal coming from the TV, and then you amplify all of them through your preamplifier, and then goes to your power amplifier. So this is it for us today. We've this circuit is all you need for your preamp and mixer. So on the left hand side of the screen is the mixer, and on the right hand side is the preamplifier. You need a preamplifier for microphone signals because the signals are weak, very low signal, low amplitude AC signal coming in through the microphones. You want to boost that signal before it goes into the power amplifier. So when this is done, next week we're going to look at the power amplifier section, and then we're going to look at the packaging the week after that. So without further ado, why don't we look at this circuit that we've been talking about right now. We finished building it, so let's just look at it. All right, so I want to make this video less than 20 minutes, so let's see how fast we can do that. Insert. All right. So there's the circuit. You remember this from last week, especially the front portion. We have the tone circuit from last week. However, this week we've added a few more components. You can see these volume controls. These are for the two microphone channels. If you look behind here, you're gonna see the capacitors and resistors. I was talking about 100 kilo ohms and 10 microfarad capacitors, and then the output from here we go into the output is going to be coming from there's a connector here, the pin here. You might not be able to see it right now, but this pin here, let me connect something to it so you can, yeah, right away this wire is plugged in. Yeah, so that place is the output from the mixer going into our preamplifier. Now our preamplifier circuit, we didn't want to build it from scratch because we have an IC based preamplifier, so we can just reuse that. All right, if you already have any of these, you don't have to rebuild them again. How you can reuse what you have. So here we have a LM386 preamplifier that we're going to use for this purpose, right? I have a trimmer here for the volume control going into the 386, and then you have the other component. So I'm going to draw it quickly because you're familiar with this, but I'm just going to draw a quick version of this. All right, so let's do that as the last thing to do here today. So this is your 386, this is pin 5, this goes to capacitor and then to output. So this will be your output. And then you have your pin 6 goes to positive. It is plus and VE, right? You have pin 2 and pin 4 going to ground. You have pin 3 as your input. Now this pin 3 we go through a volume control. So input goes here. Right. So you have pin 1 and pin 8. You have a capacitor across this 10 microfarad. So this 10 microfarad capacitor, we increase the gain of your amplifier. The gain is usually 20 dB, but with the capacitor the gain will increase to 200. So there's big increase. For this capacitor, use 220 microfarads or 470 microfarads. Right. I think this is all you need to do. So this is what we're gonna use for our preamplifier. You see why I told you about blocks? I love blocks because you are not stuck to using a particular circuit diagram. If you want, you can reuse, but if you don't want, just take the blocks that we've talked about last week. Let's go back to the blocks. Right, so these are the blocks. Yeah, right here. So take any of the blocks and provide your own circuit for that. Now next week we're going to look at the power amplifier, so I'm going to show you quickly. So we've built it, but because of the length of this video, we want to make it brief. So we have the power amplifier right here. We have the power circuit or the rectifier circuit, and then on the other side you have the power amplifier. So we're going to look at these in details next week. For our packaging, which is the week after, we're going to be looking at how to connect all these together. So we're just going to take the microphone signal from the preamplifier section, connect it into the connectors, and then we're good to go. Plug in your microphone and you start to sing. Alright, we're going to test all this next week. The packaging might be different because this will be detected by what we have at home. We're not going to buy new components for this. We have a toggle switch instead of push button, so we're going to use this. This would determine the size of our box. We're going to place it differently versus what we wanted to do last week. If you remember in the drawing, we have the microphones side by side, left to right. But now, based on what we have, we might not be able to do it that way. We might be doing it in a different fashion, right? All right. So I want to thank you for coming back to my channel, and I want you to please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Tell your friends about my channel, and if you're a student, this is a good place to be. Next week, we're going to put out a new channel for Android app development. So watch out for that. We're going to put a link in this channel, and we're going to be posting both videos in this channel and also in the new channel. So you can, if you missed it in one, you will find it in the other. All right. So I want to thank you one more time, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay enthused. Bye bye.